my brain will say, Cindy, I don't think this commission is a good idea because you haven't done a commission before. Maybe it's going to make you hate painting because if you're doing it for money, then you have to do it. And if you have to do it, are you going to want to do it? Are you even going to be able to follow through on this project and like deliver it by February? Are you even capable? Is it even going to be good enough? How much do you charge? Can you even charge? Charging people money for stuff is weird. That's like a weird psychological thing, right? Because that means you have to believe in the value of it. And valuing your art, oof, talk about hard questions.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Creativity Worth Expressing. I'm your host, Ryan Anthony Hernandez, and today I'm with a special guest coming all the way from San Antonio, Texas. I'm here with Cindy. Cindy, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
It's awesome to have you on the show. And to just get started, can you introduce yourself to the audience and also share a bit about your artistic background?
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you for giving me kind of an angle there, at least, because that is one of the broadest and hardest questions to answer. Tell me about yourself. No, I'm kidding. I'm from San Antonio. I grew up here. Both of my parents are from Monterrey in Mexico, just across the border. So I'm technically first gen here in the States. I grew up in San Antonio and went to college here and everything. I think about 2 years after I graduated in 2022, I moved to Philadelphia. I was working with a startup there for a few years. So, yeah, I guess I studied business and I was kind of rolling with that for a few years after I graduated, the momentum of that decision. I had worked in finance, I had worked primarily in like tech and ops roles, doing spreadsheet automations and all of that kind of stuff, operations based work. And I worked for an e-commerce company in Philadelphia. So there's been a mix of like operations, e-commerce, and then some marketing freelance I did in between. That's the bulk of my work history. On a personal level, I've always been really passionate about art and wellness. Those are interests that developed from a pretty early age. Starting with art, I mean, before wellness, wellness is kind of a more, let's say, in the last 5 to 10 years. Art has always been a pretty consistent thing for me. I never really received any formal training. I took an art elective in high school, as many art classes as I could in school, but those were the first ones to fill up because everybody wants to do the fun art class. So, yeah, I practiced art. I did it at home. My dad gifted me my first easel and my first bit of acrylic paints on my 15th birthday. I remember that birthday because I was so excited. My dad's side of the family actually has a bit of an artistic streak. My father always had some creative hobbies, so I think he always encouraged that in me growing up as well, whether it was puzzles or model building or like these metal earth models I used to be into or painting crafts. We would go to this place called Clay Casa and we would paint pottery on, special occasions. So my father always had a little bit of a crafty, artsy side more than my mom. I think I get it more from him. And so he always encouraged that. And I had started borrowing some of his paints. And I'd been like, hey, do you think I could maybe play with this and borrow your red? And na na na. He hadn't used it for a few years. He actually had gotten into photography and now he's into carpentry. That's his thing. He has a wood shop in the garage. Like he just plays with tools and builds stuff now. Like he's way past his painting phase. But it started with that. So I inherited a lot of his stuff and he gifted me my first set. And starting at around 15, I started painting. Prior to that, it had been mostly drawing, charcoal, pencil, sketches that I would do in sketchbooks on my homework assignments and everything that I could, basically. And then when I started painting, I started with portraits, actually. I had a Frida Kahlo phone case, and I painted that. And that was my first acrylic painting. I'll have to see if I have a photo of that. That'd be kind of fun to dig out of the archives.
Yeah, that'd be
It
nice
was
to
a Frida
see.
Kahlo. And then from there, I've always enjoyed doing faces. You know how, I don't know if you've heard this from other creatives or artists, but we tend to have certain doodles that we've hyper fixated on for a long time
Hmm.
that you just realize like continue to resurface in your art over the years, but in different ways. You're like, oh, I've been doing this kind of a doodle or this kind of a style or vibe, but it was just underdeveloped or it was just a little bit different. For me, it's always been eyes, lips, faces, animals. Certain animals I used to draw a lot, like dolphins and elephants, were like my thing because I also really like doing waves. Waves are a fun like hyperfixation doodle when you're bored. So I guess the waves go with a little sun and dolphins. That's just this. That's the sketch. Um, so yeah, I was a sketcher, and then I started painting. I started doing a lot of split face portraits, half woman, half fierce woman, half lion. I did an homage to my favorite band at the time, like in early college. That was Group Love. I don't know if you know Group Love. Of course now I can't even think of it, the name of a song because I never know the names of the songs. The Take Me to Your Best Friend's House, da da da. Group Love.
Yeah.
I did a split face painting of the two lead singers and like all of their albums mixed into one painting. It like different elements of their albums. So yeah, I mean that's kind of been the journey. It was always a consistent thing. I think in college is when I started dropping off of art
Okay.
because I got really busy. I was going to school full time and I was working at least 30 to 40 hours a week. I was a server for a while. I mean, I was a server for starting in high school. So I had been working in the restaurant industry, hotels. I worked at a hotel for a bit at the front desk. And then my junior, senior year, I started doing more corporate internships and stuff. But I was always working. And so I got really busy and I think I was just really stressed and I put down the brush for quite a few years. I would maybe do creative one off projects during my breaks or when I could carve out the time for it. But I wasn't taking it seriously because I thought it was just going to be my hobby.
Hmm.
And it always was just a hobby. It was something that I would do because I loved it. You didn't have to tell me to paint. You didn't have to pay me to paint. I was going to paint regardless. So I guess I also wanted to protect that in a way. I never really posted about my art, but because I had been doing it for a while, my friends from high school or from college who knew me knew that I had a more creative side. And occasionally they would say, "Hey, Cindy, can you help us make this poster or help us do this thing?" Or, I would have friends ask me for art. And I was always very hesitant. I was very hesitant because I was like, A, I'm too much of a perfectionist. And what if it doesn't come out good? And B, can I even charge for my art? Like, am I even good enough to be charging for art? Because sometimes I think this is actually very common in people. Something that's very natural to you, you think this is easy. Anybody could do this. But then you realize not everybody could do it or do it as easily. And for me, art was always relatively easy to pick up. It came very natural to me. Now, that doesn't mean that I haven't had to work to refine my skill set. And there's certain things that were certainly out of my league. I'm not saying I was Da Vinci, basically, is what I'm saying. But generally speaking, if I had a reference photo, it would look pretty close to what I was trying to draw.
Okay.
So I was very hesitant for a long time to step into my artistic prowess, I guess. And I backburned it for many years, probably 4 to 7. I was mostly taking a hiatus from art, and I regret that a lot. I regret that I backburned it and then I kind of pushed it aside because what happens is the longer that you go without doing the thing, the more you feel like I could never do that, and I've lost it.
Mhm.
I've let it go. I'll never do it again. I couldn't even paint if I tried. You start being all dramatic about it, and it feels harder to pick up the brush again because you wonder if you'll even be good anymore or if you'll remember how to do it. It had been that long. And when I was getting ready to move to Philly in 2022, it had been so long actually. that when my mom tried to help me move my easel into the U-Haul that I was taking, I was like, Mom, should I even take it? Am I even going to paint? I haven't painted in so long. And like, just looking at it makes me feel bad. And I don't even know if I want to take it with me. And she was like, don't be stupid. She was like, you're going to need this. Take it. And my mom cracks me up. So she was the one who kind of forced me to take it actually.
Mhm.
Because I had built up shame, I think. I had built up shame around the fact that I had let it go because people will still remember you for that and they're like, "Oh my God, Cindy, yeah, you're so artsy and you're so this." And I'm like, "You can't say that I'm artsy. I haven't painted in like 3 months or like 6 months or a year, you know?"
Yeah.
You feel like you can't claim the title of being an artist or being artsy when you haven't made anything in a while. Which is fair. It's like if somebody is like, "Oh, you're a super fit person and you're like super athletic and you haven't been to the gym in 2 years, but you used to run marathons."
Yeah.
So people still think of you as the marathon guy, and you're like, "But I haven't run a marathon or even gone for a jog in 2 years. Like I've completely stopped running." Doesn't mean you can't get back into it. You still know it's going to take a little bit of training to get back to running 15 miles,
Yeah.
but you have it in you and you've done it before, so you know you can do it. So I had started to doubt myself, really, is what it was. I had started to doubt myself and doubt my abilities because I hadn't run a marathon in a long time. I hadn't even been for a jog. And I thought, no way am I putting those tennis shoes on and going outside and trying to go for a run right now. Y'all got me twisted. But I moved to Philly in the summer of 22, and my boss's wife happened to be a fine artist and a really good one. And she had her art studio on the 6th floor. And she learned at this place called Studio and Caminati, which was on the 7th floor of the building. My office was in this old vocational high school. It's called the Bach Building in Philadelphia. It used to be a high school. They converted it into offices. And so it was a building, like, think of it like a hipster mall. It had on the first floor, it was a high school, so like lockers, hallways, big creepy old hallways and lockers and old high school gym where we would do events and have our holiday parties with so it had some of the old kind of stuff in it, but then it had a coffee shop, a small restaurant, there was a plant shop, there was a vintage shop, there was tons of artists. Pretty much the whole 6th floor was actually artists and art studios, and then the 7th floor was an art school, studio
Okay.
and Caminati, where this woman, Shira, learned, studied, and then eventually taught. And then she ended up getting her own studio, which is probably how my boss ended up in that building, right? He had known about the building through her. So kind of a small world situation where I thought I went to Philly to work for this guy and this company. And it turns out it was really just life bringing me back to art because I was so inspired by Shira. And I would sit and, the last 15 minutes of the day when she would come down and leave with, to leave with David, she would come downstairs and she would sit and I'd be like, "So, Shira, where can I go find some blah, 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 blah? And where do you think, is there any good art stores in Philly? And where can I do this?" And she was a little bit of an informal art mentor and she would give me recommendations and I loved it. So that was my long-winded answer to your
I
short
love it.
question.
I wanted to go back because you said that
Sure.
from your father's side you had a lot of influence, and also in your father's creative journey he's been busy painting, but today he's now doing carpentry. So we've seen the evolution of your father's art, but now with you, we see you have a love for art. But my question for you is: was there ever a moment where you realized, hey, this isn't just a hobby? I love art. Was there ever a moment like that for you?
That's a great question. So the question is, if there was there a moment where I realized I wanted to take my art more seriously, Or was it when I realized that like I needed art in my day to day, or that it wasn't just a hobby for me, or that I guess all the questions?
I guess all of it together. Like, where was there a moment where it's not that you just like painting or art, but that you love it, that there's a passion inside of you?
Oof, I'm about to get emotional thinking about it. Yes, there was many moments, and they were mostly my breaking points actually. So you don't even know it, but you just opened up a whole can of worms. Oh, sorry, give me a second. So I told you I moved to Philly in the summer of 22. Shortly after I moved, pretty much the entire experience was just a series of really intense major life transitions, starting with moving cross country from San Antonio, the only place that I had ever lived, to Philadelphia, a city that I had never even seen. I mean, I moved there sight unseen like 2 weeks after signing a job offer and was just like, fuck it, full send. I mean, I showed up and went to my first three apartment viewings. I got there on a Sunday, had an apartment by Wednesday. I was sleeping on the floor on my yoga mat for like a month. Like it was a punk rock hardcore intro to just crash course on life. I mean, it really was. And it was my first time really going out into the world on my own as like a very young adult. At the time, I thought I really knew everything and I was super prepared for it, but I was not. I was 22. I was 22. I was a baby. Okay. And I was like ready to eat the whole world. I was like, oh my God, the world is my oyster. I'm just going to show up in Philly. And I did. I showed up in Philly and I was hot girl walking around the entire city like I owned it. I mean, I was just like thriving on the novelty, on the fact that I was doing this really exciting thing and it all just felt like this adventure. And I felt like I was in a movie. And I was like, wow, this is so exciting. Me just like living in this city. I don't even care that it's Philly and that people are talking shit about it. I don't care because this is fun and it's my life. And I'm just getting to live my life. Whatever I want to do, I just get to go do it. And I'm just going to live it up. And I really liked my boss. I liked working with my boss. I thought he was, he's a really brilliant man. To give you a little context on that situation, I found that opportunity through Venture for America. I don't know if you're familiar with that organization. It was started by Andrew Yang, and essentially it's meant to pair recent grads with opportunities at startups. And they have right now, well, they actually just shut down, unfortunately. If I found out, I don't know if it was probably like 6 months ago or something, they announced that Venture for America is kind of shutting down, which is really sad. But it's been around for a few years, and it's the idea is to create both opportunities for accelerated learning for recent graduates who want kind of a high growth, dynamic work environment where you're sort of being thrown a million things. And then from the company's perspective, they get a young, kind of ambitious person who's going to help build out some of the systems. I I got the opportunity to move to Philly through Venture for America. And I chose to work for a smaller company. I was employee number 4 at this small music store. It was an online music store, sheet music specifically. I know nothing about music. I know nothing about classical music, and I cannot even read a note. But for whatever reason, I was really intrigued by this opportunity. It was kind of a jack of all trades sort of job. The owner, I won't say his name because he's kind of a private person, but the owner is he was one of the first engineers. I think he was the first engineer at Venmo. And he's a really brilliant kind of computer science software engineer wizard. And he has a music background. He was actually heading on the conservatory route to be a professional musician, to go to Juilliard.
Mhm.
He had played violin from a really young age. So he kind of has that music math brain And instead of going down the musical career pathway, he just ended up going down the computer science pathway and then eventually ended up opening this business. Happens to be also very entrepreneurial. I felt like I was going to learn a lot from him. And I think that's really what excited me the most about the opportunity was just the opportunity to work with someone who has started and scaled multiple businesses and who has a successful track record with that because I was like, that's who you want to learn from.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I kind of went on a mission to just learn as much as possible, treat this like my unofficial MBA, work my ass off, and have fun. And I didn't know anything about Philly, so I thought, well, we're going to make friends in Philly, hopefully. And the first 6 months were really, I moved in the summer. The summer in Philly is nice. It's like 70 degrees and sunny, and you can walk around the city, and it's nice and warm and fun. And I was meeting a ton of people, going out to events, dancing, doing stuff. But in September or October, it starts to get cold, and then events shut down, and everything gets cold and rainy. And I was really lonely. And I went through a really tough breakup, a really intense breakup, like 4 months after moving to the city. And that broke me. So that was one of my first breaking points. And then it was winter. And then I was like cold, lonely, had no friends, had nothing but work. And I was just kind of miserable. And it was a really low low for me. It was a really low time. I was processing a lot of my emotions around my relationship while also trying to cope with how lonely I was starting to feel in this city where I knew not a single soul other than my colleagues and my boss. And like, they don't want to hang out with me because they're all just like 40-year-old engineer types who like don't even want to speak more than 100 words in a day. So I'm going crazy. And I had no friends. I hadn't really, I'd met a few people out in the dance scene, but none that I was hanging out with. I couldn't remember. You know what the saddest thought was? I was like, I can't remember the last time I had dinner with someone.
Mm.
Like eating dinner by yourself consistently is lonely
Yes.
because food is meant to be shared. It's like, I don't know, it's one of the most basic things, but I guess I'd never gone that long without having it to where I was like noticing it. And thankfully, I had met somebody in my building who worked at the place next to like where my office was. Rye. Hi, Rye. I love Rye. I met Rye in the Bach building, and Rye became one of my closest friends, and we started having lunch together at work, and then we started hanging out outside of, the Bach building, and Rye was my first friend in Philly. And so, it was kind of like it was just a roller coaster the whole time. I went through low lows and high highs. And through all of those experiences, I think I started to just value the things that actually bring me joy and really start to sort it out for myself because it was so much solitude. There's nothing to do but figure yourself out. And because you're just sitting in a room by yourself, like contemplating life in the winter when you don't even want to go outside. And so there was also Shira and Studio Incaminati and the building. Bach was like my home away from home throughout this entire period. It's like the main stage for my life in Philly because it's where I was working 5 days a week. And then on top of it, there was over 150 small businesses in this building. And once a quarter, they would do Bach Open Studios and open up the entire building for the community. And you would meet all of the artists and get to see everything. So that's really inspiring. They would have dance events on the rooftop. They would have, so Bach was everything to me. I would get my coffees there, my lunches there. I would practice. Eventually, I started taking art classes there.
Okay.
So Shira opened the portal to the art world in Philly. I started going to art stores. I started buying some crafts to do at home in the winter. And that I started coming back to art. I started coming back to art mostly because at that point I was at a low. And you start reaching for the things that are just your natural defaults, right? I think we all have natural default things, and that's how you know it's core to you because it's like the thing that you reach for on a rainy day. It's the book, it's the gym, it's those boxing gloves, it's those figure skates, it's whatever that thing is. And sometimes sometimes it's a childhood thing, you know, the guitar or whatever that you drop off because you're no longer getting paid to do it and you're never going to be a rock star or a musician. But music brings you peace. And it always has. It's always just been the thing that you naturally gravitated towards when you were even when you were a kid. Don't ask me why. Who knows? So I start reaching for the paintbrushes. I start reaching for the charcoal. I actually made my whole team these canvas bags with I found a piece of sheet music that was hung somewhere in the Bach building. I saw it randomly. It was sheet music that was the school anthem back in the day, and it was like one pager, kind of like on a vintage piece of paper. And it used to be the old like high school band theme song for the building, for the high school. And I thought, oh, that's so cool. And I took a picture of it and I put it on these canvas bags. Very tedious, by the way. That was a very tedious project. I like doing individual staves on every canvas bag. I was like, I hate myself for this one. But they looked beautiful. And it was a very thoughtful gift I gave to my team, I think my first year there for Christmas or something. Can't remember. So those are the types of projects that I'm talking about though, where I'm like, oh, I want to do something kind of just like artsy and cute and gift some stuff. It was more for me than for anybody else. And that's how it always should be, right? Like it's something that you should naturally want to do from your heart, whether it's for money or not, which is why I think I never wanted to put pressure on my art to pay my bills because I wanted it to stay in this place. Like I said, I wanted to protect it in a way. I wanted it to stay pure.
Mhm.
Because when I would make stuff for myself or for other people, it was always very pure. It was from my heart. It was like something that I thought of that I wanted to create for someone. Eventually, in I want to say November or December of 2023. So like a year and a half into me living in Philly ish. My friend Sarah, one of my friends who lived there, asked me if I could she commissioned me for a pet portrait for her mom. The mom's dog, Moss, had passed away. He was like one of he was a family dog and she had had him for many, many years and she was really sad about losing him. And Sarah knew me. She had been to my house. She'd seen that I had my easel. She'd seen that I would do the occasional art project. And she hit me up and was like, can you do this piece for my mom? And her birthday's in February. And I want to gift it to her for her birthday. And I thought, I really sat on it for a few days. I sat on it for almost a week because I had never accepted a commission. So think about that.
Mhm.
I've now been painting pretty much my entire life. I think I did, that's not true. I had done 2 or 3 commissions in high school, small little one-off pieces for my friends that I charged them 25 bucks for. Nothing. Because they refused to let like not pay me basically.
Yeah.
But I charged them nothing. And and then this, like fast forward, I had my little hiatus, took a break after high school, had my hiatus. Now I'm in Philly. I've gotten back into my art. I started taking anatomy classes, little workshops, 6 to 8 week workshops and classes at Fleischer. I was going to sketch clubs on the weekends. I just started very slowly integrating myself into the community. And the more I would do it, the more excited I would get. I would go to a sketch club and then I was like, oh my God, Philly has sketch clubs. I can just come draw on the weekend. I'm just going to go draw people. This is so cool. I had never been to a sketch club. So I was just discovering all this neat stuff in Philly in terms of the art scene. And I think people take that for granted there because there's so many art museums and theaters and schools, academies for art, academies for performing arts, academies for dance, academies for music. I mean, they're everywhere. And I think people who are from the Northeast or who have access to that, they must just think like, yeah, this is normal. But coming from Texas, I'm like, listen, we don't have all that. We don't have all that here because there's not as much of an appreciation. Um, Art is also very expensive. You know, Texas is a blue collar state. I love blue collar. Hey, I'm a blue collar girly. I'm not roasting. But generally speaking, the culture is not oriented towards the arts and the performance arts. And, you know, we have good food and we have trucks. Like, come on now. You know?
Yeah.
And so culturally speaking, of course there's outliers, of course there's art, of course we have an incredible symphony. Even the high school that I went to, Ronald Reagan, has one of the best bands in the country. We have great sports teams. I mean, we have a lot going for us. I'm not saying Texas is only trucks, okay? Like nobody get pissed off. I love Texas. But Philadelphia is the oldest city in the country, and it has one of the richest histories in terms of landmarks, architecture, buildings, museums. It's all arts and history. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of living in a city like that. So I was really soaking it in, and I think living there gave me that appreciation because there were so many places where I could go look at amazing art or practice or take classes. I mean, I was just like, wow. So that's been the evolution. And I think those were the small clicks for me, right? It was low lows, moments of solitude followed by reflection. And then you ask yourself, what am I going to do next? How am I going to get through this winter? What am I going to do to make myself feel better when I don't have many people to turn to, when I don't have much to do outside of work? I don't like the cold weather. What am I going to do? And my answer was art. Like my answer to everything was just pretty much art. I was like, I'm just going to art about it. I'm sad. I'm going to paint about it. I'm happy. I'm going to paint. I'm lonely. I'm going to paint. Like that was it. That was my solution to everything was art. I'm not even joking you. I would do murals in my bedroom. Even, oh, talk about PTSD. I got, I didn't have a car the first year and a half that I was in Philly pretty much. Everyone told me not to have one, especially because I was living pretty close to Center City. My office is kind of in South Philly, so South Philly really was where I lived, like Queens Village and Bella Vista, for people who know. But yeah, having a car in the city is incredibly impractical and like super expensive. And I knew it was going to be bad, but I didn't think it would be that bad. And I thought, I really want to be able to get out of the city when I want to. I want to be able to go hiking. There's plenty of beautiful cities and parks in the state of Pennsylvania, in New Jersey, in New York. I want to go visit, and I feel limited without my car because I can't be as spontaneous as I'd like to be. And I finally did. I did my little cost benefit on how much it was going to be, and I was like, I think we're good. I think we're safe. Well, I get my car and I get hit with 15 tickets in 2 months, maybe more, at least one a day, if not one every 2 days. I mean, it was ridiculous how much I was getting not only ticketed, but also towed. Like it was just a party.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that was that was Q4 of 2023. I was going to say last year, but we're already in 2025. October, let's say I got that car in July. So pretty much August, September, by October, I was like burning through my savings. I had probably spent $3,500 on tickets and tows. I had to move to a different apartment so that I could have a parking spot because I was like, this is getting so out of hand that I just need to move
Oh,
somewhere where I have designated parking. And I had to pay an extra $200 a month for that. And then I had to move.
yeah.
So, like, chaos. And for Christmas that year, I stayed in Philly and I decorated all of my parking tickets. And instead of them being parking citations, I made them into holiday citations and I handed them out to my neighbors. I just put them on random cars like a little elf. And I used like some, I went to Walmart. This was my Christmas. I went to Walmart, bought a set of markers for $10, bought some like ingredients to make a lasagna or a pasta. And I made pasta and I decorated all of my parking tickets. And that's why I say I turned it all into art. In the end, I would find a way. I would say I have to transmute this into something beautiful because it's looking really bad right now and I'm feeling really angry at the world. So how can I make this beautiful? How can I cope with these 27 million parking tickets? And art was my answer. That's how I knew.
Something I wanted, excuse me, something I wanted to explore is because earlier you were kind of talking about how you've put this hobby, this passion of art, creativity, you put it aside. And there's a part of you that's kind of thinking like, can I take this up again? There's also, you also mentioned that feeling of maybe this isn't quite the best way to describe it, but I think you said like a shame, like, can I do this?
Yeah. Doubt. A
Doubt,
lot of
exact.
doubt. Like, can I even pick up the brush anymore?
Was there like a influential person who maybe gave you a bit of a push, or was it all maybe just deep inside? It just had to come out. How would you explain it? Where you found, I don't know if it's the courage or the confidence, the opposite of doubt, I guess would I'll say for this. Where did you find the confidence to dig deep and say, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna go get my art supplies. We're gonna go to Walmart today. Let's get busy. Was there something that sparked that passion again?
Yeah. How do you overcome the doubt to do the thing that you love? I think this is a big question for a lot of people, actually. I think a lot of people know what they love, but they're scared to go for it or scared to go for it in a real way or to take it seriously or to post about it. Because what if I'm not good enough? Or what if I can't make a living from it? Or what if yeah, mindset is huge. I don't think that there's a singular person. I think one of the things that has helped me with my confidence is dance. I've been dancing for about 5 years. And that is literally a practice for me. It's an exercise in looking stupid and getting comfortable with that. It's an exercise in being uncomfortable because the whole time you're going to be uncomfortable. You're dancing with a complete stranger. Dancing in public sober has to be probably in people's top three list of things after like your pants falling down during a presentation and like public speaking. It's like dancing in public. People don't do it. Why? Because after the age of like 7, you develop what's called self consciousness, where you become aware that you have a body, but you don't really know what to do with it anymore. And your relationship with your body changes through puberty into adulthood. You gain weight, you lose weight, you're fit, you're less fit, your skin changes, you get wrinkled as a woman. We're like traumatized about how we look, right? So you're constantly having to rework your relationship with yourself and with your body, especially. And they're connected. And people think they're separate and they're not. It's connected. So when you ask me about mindset, how do I work on my mindset? Through the physical. I work on my mind through my body and I work on my body through my mind. They're both helping each other or they're both hurting each other. And it's only either or. There's really no neutral ground when it comes to, I think, the maintenance of the machine because it's maintenance. So there's never an end point. You never arrive. There's no number that matters. It's about the ongoing, it's about coming back to yourself every day or every week. And you're going to fall off for a day or two or a week or a year. And then guess what? You come back and you show up for yourself again and you start getting into it. And so dance is a physical practice. It's in the body. And it's about me feeling comfortable in my body while doing things that I'm uncomfortable with in public while sober with a stranger. I'm able to do it because I love the music and I love to move my body and I've always loved a challenge. So these are things that it's like my disclosures, right? Like I already am a natural, I naturally seek out challenges. I mentioned to you about the move to Philly. I tend to be quite novelty seeking. I tend to be more open to trying new things than the average person. If you're not very open to new experiences, that's another thing you're going to have to overcome. It's a different thing you're going to have to overcome. If like just getting out the door for you or talking to people is something that you struggle with. I am naturally pretty extroverted and open. So for me, dance was possible. Now, I still had to learn the skills and learn the steps, and I still have to practice, and I still have room to grow. Even after 5 years, there's always going to be room to grow. It will be infinitely interesting for the rest of my life. I hope to have a lifelong practice and never stop dancing because I think it's super fun and one of the most universal connectors on the planet. It's just beautiful. Art is the same way. And I'm getting sidetracked in answering your question because I got on a philosophical tangent about
No, I
the
love it.
body and the mind.
I love it. Go.
So, but you were asking me about the overcoming the doubt.
Yes.
So let me drive back to the main point. Okay. So for so there needs to be a physical component. What I'm saying? Because your mind and your body are connected. So part of feeling confident and feeling good, I'm not saying you have to be a gym rat or a professional weightlifter or you need to do, but you need to have some sort of a physical practice. Otherwise, you're just going to feel miserable. Because when you're sedentary, I mean, think about why people who have desk jobs, you're having back pain, you're feeling fatigued, you're feeling low energy, you are feeling drained by what you're doing because you're not passionate about the work. So everything about it is draining. And then your physical needs are not being met because you're sitting all day and you're not moving around. So there's like stagnant energy. It's like still water. That's just like you need movement. Movement is essential. So especially if you have a full-time job that requires you to be chained to a desk, you need to be going out of your way to move your body, to keep your mental straight. Beyond the physical and like, the general sleeping enough, eating generally healthy, and taking reasonable help, having a reasonably active lifestyle, I'll say. Whether you get that in your work, in your day to day, you're just like moving around throughout the day, or you have an actual routine around your fitness, depending on where you live on that spectrum, because I think it's a spectrum. And I personally am not the kind who wants to be going to the gym every day. So, beyond the physical wellness aspect of it, I think I have trained myself. I have certain practices like journaling where I am editing the narrative in my head. So if there's a doubt around my abilities, I approach it with curiosity in my mind. I don't immediately trust what my brain is telling me. So my brain will say, Cindy, I don't think this commission is a good idea because you haven't done a commission before. Maybe it's going to make you hate painting because if you're doing it for money, then you have to do it. And if you have to do it, are you going to want to do it? Are you even going to be able to follow through on this project and like deliver it by February? Are you even capable? Is it even going to be good enough? How much do you charge? Can you even charge? Charging people money for stuff is weird. That's like a weird psychological thing, right? Because that means
Yeah.
you have to believe in the value of it. And valuing your art, oof, talk about hard questions. So let's say that's the doubtful script in my mind. That's like telling me like, hesitation. I'm having hesitations about it. I say, okay, and I go through each one in my head and I say, okay, is there any truth to this? Or is this an assumption that I'm making? And if there's truth to it and there's a risk, like not following through, then all I really need to do is ask myself a few follow-up questions and say, well, what's the risk? Not finishing on time, not finishing it up to standards, or like losing steam, basically. So how do I mitigate those risks? Instead of just saying, there's a risk, there's a challenge, I'm walking away from this. Or, maybe I won't like it because if I get paid to do it, it's no longer pure. It becomes, there's a transactional aspect to my art now. So maybe that'll give me the ick. What I told myself is, well, I'll do this one commission and see how I feel. I haven't tested it. Let me test it. You approach it from a, sorry, I'm like pointing at you now,
Yeah.
but you approach it from a scientific perspective. Everything is a hypothesis. It's not a fact. It's not a law. You're allowed to change your mind. So give yourself the wiggle room to change, is my advice to people. Because right now you think that if you sell your art, it's going to make you hate it. But maybe there's a limit. Maybe it's if I do 5 paintings in a month for other people and I don't have time for my own projects, that's when I start feeling resentful. So now I know my limit is 3. So what I told myself with the commission for Sarah was very simple. I said, okay, I haven't done a commission before like this. I'm going to charge her for the expenses, like for the materials, but I'm not really going to charge her a lot because that takes some of the pressure off of me to be wanting to, sell her something that's super expensive, like overpromise and underdeliver, basically. That was one of my fears. To tell her, oh, yes, I'm going to make you this spectacular pet portrait and it's worth $1,000 and then it's mediocre. So I set the bar low. I said, look, you're my friend. I want to do this for you. I haven't really done this before. How about you pay for the materials and I'll make the painting for you? And it won't be rushed. I had a few months, it was like December, let's say, when we finalized everything. So I said, I have like 2 months to do a 16 by 24 portrait of this dog. I had a good reference photo and I did a sketch in my sketchbook and then I painted it and I liked how it turned out. And her mom loved it. That video, oh, talk about gush. I mean, I wanted to cry. Her mom really loved the painting and it was very special. And she's my friend. So I realized selling my art actually felt good because it made someone's day. And that I have this gift that I can share with people because maybe Sarah couldn't have made that painting for her mom, but I can. And I can give her that gift of memorializing her dog. And that's a beautiful thing. And that made me feel good about doing custom work for other people, let's say, because it's like a gift that I can give. It's like the Cindy gift that I have to offer the world. How fun is that? So that was my first commission from this year, from 2024. I posted a photo of that one and I had 2 or 3 more people reach out to me wanting something similar. And I thought, oh, well, that's interesting. I wasn't expecting that. I started just sharing some of the stuff that I was painting, and now more people were reaching out. And again, friends from college who either didn't even know that I painted or had just never really thought to ask because I hadn't posted anything about it in so long. I wasn't really active on social media for many years. So I really felt like it was, that first commission felt like me coming out of the art closet. It felt like I had been a closeted artist and now I was starting to put myself out there as somebody who paints, as somebody who does art, and people were being really receptive.
Well,
So I just rolled with it and I did a few more pet portraits and then I did a few more of this and eventually it had been a year of doing commissions and that's when I decided when I moved back to get the studio.
something that I really admire about you is that even though you do go through your struggles and you were in for a period there, you were going through solitude over in Philly and then the cold weather. I mean, the weather over there isn't the same as it is here in San Antonio,
Brutal.
Texas. But you worked through it, and also you have a mentality where you work with your body, and it's very interesting the self approach that you take. But I wanted to ask you, what would be your advice? Because I've heard people who may be very artistic, very talented, but sometimes there are those who unfortunately don't have your kind of mindset, and they'll say to themselves, but I didn't go to art school. I can't. How can I sell? Do you have any opinions or maybe even advice for people who think that way?
So that's a great question. And You brought up a lot of common concerns that I think are shared amongst all, not just artists, people, because this is a universal thing that humans struggle with is knowing what to do with your life, and then how do you get there, and then to what degree, and what's the cost, and then what is the outcome, and we want to know all of these things. And life is just wrought with uncertainty, which is really unfortunate. As much as I would love to know that things are going to work out, I can't. So that's a very stoic Ryan Holiday way to think about it, is just like, first, think about what's in your control and what's not. I think people don't focus enough on what's in their control, more than the opposite. Because everyone says that quote in this way of like, just don't focus on the things you don't control. Don't focus on what you don't control. I think we undervalue how much is within our control. The small choices we make every day, like I said, how you take care of yourself, super important, not talked about enough. Huge component in success is how you take care of yourself. Because if you don't have the energy, how are you going to get your stuff done? I care about what I eat and being active and moving and all of these things, not because I love working out, not because I love eating broccoli, even though I like vegetables. It's because I want to have the energy to do the things that I want to do for a long time. It's because I want to be dancing when I'm 70. It's because I want to be knitting when I'm 90. It's because I want to be practicing art for the rest of my life, because I think these things have the potential to be lifelong pursuits. There's certain things, they're meant to be lifelong pursuits. It's a lifestyle. And the fact that it's a lifestyle means that you have to build a life around the thing. So if you want to speak practically about how you get there, you have to start looking at your day to day. And this is a common framework, right? People are like, well, imagine your ideal week. And I'm like, no, don't imagine it. Actually start tweaking stuff. Because your imagined ideal week is never going to happen. You just have to learn how to carve out the time. You need to start using your calendar and blocking in time to do the stuff that you care about, if you care about it. Put it in your calendar. Start there. Start by saying, I'm going to dedicate 2 to 4 hours a week to this, because you can carve out 2 to 4 hours. And that's where I tell people to start, is carving out 2 to 4 hours. Not quitting your job. That's not the first step. Not leaving everything and making this huge, drastic change in your life from one day to the next because you've realized you want to do more art, or that art is missing from your life, or something's missing from your life. You're not where you want to be. You're not where you want to be. You don't feel like you're living up to your full potential. You have stopped doing the things that you love because you got wrapped up in a relationship, or too focused on your career and you lost friendships. So this is the process. Identify your North Stars. First of all, what's important to you? That's a huge question a lot of people don't ask themselves. What truly matters to you? Do you know? And how do you know? And how much does it matter to you? Because there's certain things that matter to me at like a level 2. Like what brand of socks I'm wearing. Clothing in general, I don't care much about. I'm not a fashion person. I don't care very much about material possessions. Some people really value material possessions. I want things that are cheap because I stain everything and I lose stuff. So I don't want to buy anything over $20 because I'm going to lose it or get it full of paint. So I want things that are not going to stress me out. I cannot have something that's worth $200 or $600 on my body, because then I'm going to be really mad if I get something on it. And that's stressful because I'm a messy girl. So like, this whole game is the know yourself game. And it starts with knowing yourself. And that's hard. And that takes time in and of itself, because getting to know yourself means trying new things, having a few jobs that you didn't really align with, but now you know that you don't want to work in an office, or you don't want to be sitting all day. Now you know that you want to be working on a computer or not on a computer. You have to start. The only way that you get the answers to those questions is by trying things, unfortunately. You can read and you can watch YouTube and have a sense of what you think you would like, but until you try it, how do you know?
Yeah.
So at a certain point, you have to kind of build that plan of like, actually, my health is really important to me. And right now, and then you have to ask yourself, okay, here's what you do. This is the question. You say, what's the number one thing that's getting in the way of my health right now? Or what's the number one change? If I had to pick just one thing that I could change that I think would make the biggest 80% difference in solving that problem or getting me closer to my goal, what's the one thing? People keep focusing on all the details and they think they need apps or an Apple Watch to give them more analytics, or they think they need to do all this dieting or do all of this, all this stuff. And they're doing 20 million things, but none of them is the one thing, which is maybe you eat when you're bored, or you have a sugar addiction, you have a soda addiction. You're eating really healthy, but you drink 10 Cokes a day. So the Coke is the number one thing that would make a big difference in your health, or cutting out cigarettes, or everyone has a thing, right? Like everyone has a unique thing that's getting in their way. You need to identify it for yourself and be real about what it is. Be real with yourself. I have friends who have drinking issues, right? Like I have other vices. Drinking has never been mine, but some people have a predisposition. And I've had a few friends have to get over that hurdle and learn that the hard way and realize that the number one thing standing between them and their goals was alcohol. And that's a tough one to wrestle with. Addictions are tough to wrestle with. You're lucky if it's something mild. You're lucky if it's just that you eat when you're bored. Because otherwise, you got real issues. And it's going to be a real challenge. And you're going to have to be really on top of your shit. But that's the secret, is that you just have to match your crazy. And so anytime that you identify a doubt or a predisposition, you realize that you land on the addictive end of the spectrum for a number of things, or that your personality tends to be really intense, or that you tend to be just on the extreme end of any spectrum. That's going to mean that you're extreme, and you're going to have to be careful. But it also means that if you learn how to mitigate that, or you know that about yourself, you can channel it properly. You can make it your greatest strength. You can make everything that's bad about you your superpower. Because, if you have an addiction to alcohol, and in order to stay away from alcohol, you have to develop an obsessive gym habit, now you're just incredibly fit. Superpower. I got diagnosed with a sleep disorder this year. Okay, fun fact, I'm a sleepy girl, and it was interfering with my work, actually. I've had issues with both of my last jobs because occasionally I don't wake up for work. I sleep through all my alarms. Don't know why. It became an issue for obvious reasons. Anybody would have fired me after like a week. But David was nice and he was pretty flexible for the most part. And but eventually it became an issue because it was. And I got diagnosed with this sleep disorder. And like, frankly, I don't know that I'll ever be able to hold a 9 to 5, just because it makes me unreliable at best when it comes to mornings, especially, but just waking up early, because any amount of stress or sleep deprivation can really just throw me off. And that's just what I got. So it was a little devastating. It was a pretty big reason that I chose to leave my last job, because I was not healthy and it was exacerbating the issues. And all of the stress from the moves and the tickets and financial stress and physical stress and emotional stress, it was all there. It was all present. And it's like all of my illnesses just started firing off. Things that I probably had for a while, but I was managing a little bit better. And then you like crank up the stress to a level 12, and all of a sudden now Now you have level 12 issues because that's what happens is like your stress is going to trigger the things that you have predispositions for, right? Everyone has these like dormant genes that you have what they call genetic predispositions. So let's say you have a family history of cancer. Well, you have a cancer gene in your system, it's in your DNA. Doesn't mean it has to express itself. But if you go through a really traumatic, stressful life event, all of a sudden it could trigger a reaction where that gene goes from off to on. It flips the switch because your body enters into a state of fight or flight, and stress does all sorts of weird things to your body. And so now you have cancer. But you could have gone your whole life without having it or without even knowing.
Mhm.
That's why it helps to know your history, because then you know what predispositions you have. You know what you need to look out for. If you have 3 generations of alcoholism in your family, probably don't drink. Probably safe to say you're going to have an issue with it and you're going to like it a little too much.
Yeah.
Or try it and really see how you feel. But if you do know, if you notice off the bat, like, oh yeah, after I have 1 drink, I want 20, probably you should stay away from alcohol because you have a history. Now I don't, but I have a history of smokers, us Mexicans, my whole family smoked when I was growing up. So now what do I gravitate towards? Smoking. I was addicted to the vape. Alcohol doesn't tempt me at all. I don't even like beer. I could go my whole life without drinking and I'd probably be fine. I'll have 1 drink once in a blue moon. But smoking? Oh, love it. Because that's my thing. That's
Yeah.
what I have a predisposition for. So this is, again, it's the know yourself game. So if someone's struggling with mindset, there's a few things. One, first of all, is it true that you need a degree to practice art? No, that's not a fact. Does going to school accelerate your learning and make it probably easier for you to get to a point where you can sell your art? Maybe. Depending on the school, depending on what kind of art, depending on the class, depending on who you are as a person. Maybe. It's not even a guarantee. A degree does not guarantee you anything. I think people forget that. And at what cost? Because you are purchasing an educational product at the end of the day. And nowadays, they're expensive. Those pieces of paper, they're really expensive. So if your job is not going to, first of all, if it doesn't require a license, which art does not, you do not need a license to be an artist. You need a license to be a doctor.
Yeah.
You need a license to be a chemical engineer. You need a license to do certain jobs, accounting. There's certain jobs that it's a requirement for a reason. Because there's legal things involved, because there's a life involved, there's much higher risk. You can practice art right now on a piece of paper. Grab a piece of paper and a pen. You're an artist. You're welcome. Do you know what I mean? It's really that simple. If you're not making the time for it, that's a separate issue. It's like people who want to be healthy, but they're like, I can't stick. I struggle to be consistent with my workout routine. I struggle with consistency in general. I get it. It's a challenge for me because I'm not a routine person. I'm a chaotic person. Chaotic good,
Yeah.
but I'm like, what's the schedule? Like what time is it? What day is it? I'm like losing track of time and I never know what planet I'm on. And like, you got to keep me anchored to the ground because I'm floating away on a cloud somewhere and I get lost in conversation and you will have to shut me up and get me started on a
Yeah.
certain, like, that's just who I am. So I have to, again, create tools and systems in my life that work for me so that I can stay organized enough to get anything done. I have to use a calendar and put reminders and set alarms and make sure that I make to-do lists or do whatever crazy thing helps keep me, accountable to getting the stuff done. Even this last year that I was doing art commissions, I started with Sarah. I did a particular process. I realized, oh, for next time, I would rather do this and approach it this way. I don't need to do a full sketch on a composition book. That was an extra 2 to 4 hours that I didn't need to spend. Actually, in order to sell a commission, I could probably just do a mood board and use the reference photo, and I'm doing a portrait. There's no need for that. And I started iterating my process on how I would work with customers, ideation, planning. How do I plan for a painting? How do I get an estimate for the cost of materials? How much are the materials? I'd never even done the math on how much it cost me to make a painting because I wasn't selling them. So it didn't matter. Now it matters because, like, am I even breaking even?
Yeah.
So, what is the break even? I need to sell a painting for at least 150, 250 because the canvas is $50 and the paints are más o menos whatever. You know? So, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you start formalizing your process and you start creating a process because now you have to deliver. The thing that I ended up loving about commissions is that it actually helped keep me accountable. I kept thinking the commissions were going to hold me back from doing my own stuff. I thought, oh my God, if I do commissions, then I'm just not going to have time for my own things. What actually has happened is that commissions keep me consistent because it's a project with a set timeline. I'm forced to do it. Maybe it's not in my style all the time. Maybe it's not exactly what I would paint. It's for somebody else. But it's practice. It's practice, it's paid, it covers the expenses of my hobby. So now my hobby is at least self-sufficient. I'm scaling it, right? But prior to that, I'm like, well, that's 250 or 450 that can go towards more art supplies.
Yeah.
Yay! Or that art class that I've been wanting to take. Now I can take that intro to oil and I can start learning new mediums. So I was using it to fund my art hobby. And it was forcing me to be consistent with my art because now I'm consistently working on stuff. So that actually gave me the momentum and the practice that I needed to regain the confidence, to regain my confidence in myself, right? Because I'm like, damn, now it's been a year and a half, almost 2 years. I've taken an anatomy class, intro to oil, I'm learning a new medium. And for the last 12 to 14 months, I've had at least one commission every single month.
That's good.
That's consistent.
Hmm.
That's me showing and proving to myself that I care enough and that I've been carving out the time and that I've been putting in the effort. Mind you, I had a full-time job. So, yeah, one painting a month is about all I could squeeze in. And then I moved from Philadelphia back to San Antonio in May of 2024, shortly after I quit my last job. And in between, I was art modeling at the art school, getting discounts and practicing art. So, um, it's about finding the right mix, making ideally instead of doing, I've done a lot of big transitions and like, I'm a big change girl. You know, I just go radical. I go right in. I'm just like, boom, Philly, fuck it.
Yeah.
You know, not everybody likes that. Not everybody can do that, nor should they. I don't recommend that pathway for almost anybody but me, or like maybe the other crazy people of the world. I'm pretty impulsive. It can be spontaneous and fun, but it's also at its worst impulsive and like, you know, hasty. So they're two sides of the same coin. Being open to new experiences, getting out of your comfort zone and taking healthy risks is one side of the the coin or the double-edged sword, which is if you are that way, you also tend to be impulsive, not consistent because you're always trying new things and you never stick with it. You'll start, but you'll never finish a project. So, like, how do I, Cindy, leverage my natural strengths and abilities, which is to bring the energy of starting a new project because I love new ideas, but then maintain that steam so that I can actually do the thing. And that's been what I've been learning and refining over the last, I mean, forever, really. It's something that you're always refining.
Yeah.
Is how to work with your strengths, know your weaknesses, and like get to the place where you can consistently kind of perform and maintain it. without overdoing it and burning yourself out, or without underselling or completely backburning things. Like, how do you juggle? How do you juggle it all? How do you juggle it and then one thing flies off and something gets thrown at you, and like, how do you continue to juggle? And then you figure it out, and then guess what? Something changes. So like that's, I mean, that's life.
So now that
There's a book. The last
oh,
thing I'll recommend is a book for people who want to understand how to start unlocking that kind of a mindset. Pretty standard book. I think she's the person who coined the term growth mindset, Carol Dweck. Carol Dweck, Growth Mindset is a great read. It's a short read, and it is literally answers the question that you asked, which is if you have this mindset if you have self-limiting beliefs and a mindset that's holding you back from failing or growing, you need a growth mindset. What is a growth mindset and how do you get there? Great book.
oh, well, thank you for sharing. Thank you for all of the wisdom. And now for this part of the interview, I want to switch to something a bit lighter. I know we've been going down the deep, artistic, even at moments, we have times where it can kind of get a little bit philosophical, which I'm always open for. Now let's go a little bit lighter, a little bit more chill. And I'm going to ask you some simple questions. You ready?
Sure.
So I know you love art and creativity. So what would you say would be your favorite art supply, art tool?
Uh, Tool or medium? Like, are we talking colors and paints, or are we talking like brushes and
Can be any, like my favorite thing would be for me, it's my
my favorite
favorite
thing for
tools
creating?
for creating. Yeah, it can be anything.
Toothpicks and cotton swabs.
Okay.
That's so weird.
Explain your answer.
Random household objects that make really great art tools are my favorite. A toothpick and a cotton swab can do so much. Any kind of sponge, even I used to rip out the sponges from airport neck pillows and chop them up and use them to create like drippy water effects because I didn't want to buy fancy sponges.
Uh-huh.
So, because sometimes they're more expensive and you can get the same effect using things at home. I'm a DIY girly at heart. Okay. So there's a lot of art tools that you can buy, but you could also just use a t-shirt as a
Okay.
cloth. You know what I mean? You don't need to buy the 100% organic cotton towelette for your oil painting. You can use a t-shirt. You can use any rag. Like, and same thing with creating some of these. I tend to like with acrylics, I really used to like creating watercolor effects and playing with the transparency of the paint and using different kinds of mediums to create because acrylic dries fast.
Mhm.
So, generally speaking, acrylic is more suited for graphic, cartoon, pop art type stuff because it's opaque. It doesn't blend. I mean, it blends well, but it dries really fast. So imagine if you're trying to paint something that's realistic, where you need to kind of do a lot of blending and a lot of like skin tone. It can't just be like yellow.
Yeah.
Like skin tone is not just peach.
Mhm.
So if you're trying to create a realistic effect, which is something I've always been drawn to, acrylics can be kind of limiting. So I got really creative with finding liquid mediums that slow down the drying time. And you can play with stuff like that to change up the effects of the paint and create different effects. And cotton swabs and toothpicks are the toothpicks I've been using a lot with ceramics. That's how I draw on ceramic pieces. I will, because it's a very chalky medium, it's a very chalky paint. So you can slap on some paint in a not very good way. It'll dry in 5 minutes, and then you can just use a toothpick to scrape it off. Unofficial art tool. Amazing. Same thing with cotton. You can do a lot of cloud or blended leaves, flowers, cotton, cotton, just random little cotton swab.
All right, cool. My next question is From all of the art pieces that you have worked on, do you have a personal favorite?
No,
No, you love all of them.
no, I hate all of them. That's my love hate relationship with art. It'll never
Why,
be perfect.
why do you say you hate it?
I love making stuff. I don't want to look at it ever after.
Okay.
Does that make sense? As an artist, I am naturally self-critical. I don't think all artists are, but I think it's a tendency. It's a natural tendency. I'm a perfectionist. I care about all the small details. I want it to look perfect. And there's like a perfect vision in my head of what I'm trying to create. And when I can't execute it, it drives me nuts because it doesn't live up to the standard in my head of what I want to make the effect. Imagine you're trying to paint an ocean and you're like, but how do you convey the movement of a wave crashing on the shore? Like,
Hmm.
how do you capture the texture of someone's hair and get the color just right? How do you even properly represent a person who is 3D on a two-dimensional surface?
Hmm.
And art, people who are the kind of crazy who are into art, all it is having the patience to wrestle with each of those individual components until it's about right. Because you're just slapping it on. It's not going to be perfect, right? It's not even worth it to, especially if you're painting, don't even sketch it. Just go for it because you're going to have to fix it at least 100 million times. And that's what painting is. It's like you get down a color and then you're like, that's not quite right. I'm going to make it more blue. No, actually, that needs to, her face is more over here than over there. And it's just having the patience to make a million edits until it's like about right.
Hmm.
So that's what art is, in my opinion. And that's what painting is. Different mediums, different stuff. It's a lot of problem solving. It's literally creative problem solving at its finest. And I love that. I love the challenge of it. I love being challenged by my art and I want to continue to do stuff that challenges me artistically, creatively, and using different tools, using different mediums, bigger sizes of paintings, murals, um, pottery is new, ceramics. I mean, these are all new avenues that I'm stepping into that are exciting and terrifying and challenging. And that's what makes it interesting for me. That's what keeps it fun. It's infinitely, I could live 300 years or 7 lifetimes and never learn everything there is to know about art.
It's
So,
always
like,
something new.
there's so many different things. Like, it's
Hmm.
just infinite. So, like, I've just accepted that it's going to take me a lifetime. Like, I'll get there when I'm 70, maybe. You know what I mean?
Now, my next question, you ready?
Yeah.
Uh,
These were supposed to not be deep.
yeah, but hey, let's go. I mean,
Okay.
this is the fun part about podcasting is that every time I have a guest, it could be a one word answer, fine, or it can be a storytelling, and that's perfectly fine too. And that's what you're bringing. I love that. So my next question is: when you're deep in thought, deep in inside of your art and doing your stuff, doing your work, do you have a music playlist?
No,
No, silence.
mostly.
Okay,
If I'm painting,
okay.
I can listen to music sometimes, mostly without words. I find music distracting mostly. I like to dance to music. I can't be playing stuff that I want to shake my ass to. It's distracting.
Okay, well, do you
I
dance?
can't, I do dance. I like Latin dance. Salsa bachata is like those are my mains, but I've done other styles. In Philly, I tried ballet, I tried belly dancing, I got into pole dancing. I mean, I tried it all. So I love movement. I love all movement. And I love just trying different styles of stuff. It's more fun to work out that way, I found.
Mhm.
If I'm actually learning a skill and doing something that I find fun and challenging and I'm learning a skill, even if it's physical, it doesn't feel like I'm working out. So it's
Mhm.
like a little way that I lie to myself. It's a hobby. It's not working out. I just have an
Yeah.
active lifestyle. It's just part of my lifestyle. It's not
Yes.
I'm not on a diet. It's just like this is my lifestyle. I like to feel good. I don't have a workout regimen. I just move my body daily. Like I try to keep it real simple with myself because then I don't know. So I totally forgot your question.
Was the music, but I mean,
Oh, no
yeah.
music.
Okay.
Mostly no music. I've been really into the Mia Gargerit album. I think it's called Gia Margaret. She like flipped her name.
Mhm.
I can't remember which one is her actual artist name now. That one's kind of just like dreamy music. I will listen to acoustic or piano covers. I will listen to classical. I hate that I'm about to say that classical music. Yeah.
That's
Sounds
cool.
it sounds obnoxious, but it's just relaxing. I just think it's relaxing and it doesn't have words. Lo-fi.
Mhm.
So, yeah. I mostly like to be in silence though.
Deep in thought.
It
Some
it can be distracting. It can also affect my emotions. That's why I'm picky about what I'm listening to because all of a sudden I'll notice sometimes I'll be listening to music and you just let it run in the background. But then the music starts getting kind of sad and then I all of a sudden start feeling kind of sad and then I'm like, what the fuck am I listening to? Like, no, 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 get this off. And so music it does affect your emotions. It sets the mood. So it can be good for maintaining or setting a mood or getting into a particular rhythm, but you also have to be aware of the fact that if it starts going in a certain direction, like of being too sad or too slow, it's going to make you sleepy. It's going to make you sad all of a sudden. You're like trying to paint and do work and then you're crying in the corner for no reason. Obviously, not
yeah.
me. I'm not emotional at all, as you saw. So, I'm sensitive. I'm very sensitive and I'm very easily distracted. So, any kind of music that could throw me off, it's like I actually just need no distraction, is what it is.
Okay, so now we're coming up to our final questions.
Exciting.
The question is, are there any upcoming artists that you have noticed that you think deserve a bit more recognition?
Yes, three off the top of my head. And they're all women that I know, so I'm biased. Shira, David's wife, and like I said, she was kind of my art mentor. She's a fine artist based in Philly. Shira Friedman. Shira Fix is her Instagram, I think. I just think she's an incredible artist. I just really like her stuff. And she was one of the people who most inspired me to go down the more classical route. Oil painting, I found really intimidating because I'd never touched oils. I had all acrylic. And I was like, how do you even do oil painting? I also realized why no one does it. It's because it's so expensive. $35 a tube, $30 a tube for paint. I was like, oh, no wonder nobody's doing. No wonder it's called fine art. It's because it's freaking expensive. Um, I rest whatever. It is what it is. It's beautiful paint. It's like painting with butter. It's amazing. I'm gonna have to make more money. I'm gonna have to sell more paintings so I can fund my hobby and learn oil painting. Okay.
There you go.
So Shira Elizabeth Berglund, she was also on the sixth floor. Her studio, hopefully, is still based out of the Bach building on the sixth floor. She does really large oil paintings. I mean, like probably 10 feet by like 5 by 10 large oil pieces. She actually paints her friends. I was I saw her work during one of the open studios. I stumbled into her studio and we were chatting, and I was actually looking at a painting of a guy. And he was kind of like sitting in a chair and he had sort of this like afro hair, and it was really interesting the way she blends realism with kind of these imagined invented sets that have some sort of a symbolic meaning or story behind them, whether it's personal or just more like broad. And she was doing a series of paintings of men in her life because she was painting and studying like the female gaze. Women are always depicted in art, which is why we always talk about the male gaze, women being looked at through the male gaze. So she wanted to be a woman, a female artist, looking at men through the female gaze.
Mm.
So she was doing a series on men. And I'm looking at this painting and I'm like, wow, like I'm just looking at it's huge, it's like hanging in her studio. And I was just looking at it and the guy next to me goes, cool painting, right? And he was the guy in the painting. And I was like, shut up. They were like best friends and he's also a creative. Anyways, Shira Friedman, Elizabeth Berglund, and one of my best friends, Christy Kay. I think she's an incredible artist. Different mediums. She is actually a graphic designer by trade. However, she's leveraged her art in work in many different ways photography, videography. She loves to draw. She's been doing more art markets and selling more of her own pieces. But, she's a designer by trade. So it's applied art, basically, is what it is. She knows how to use Photoshop and how to use Illustrator and how to use these digital tools to leverage art for business purposes. But so that's really her biggest strength, in my opinion. But she does all sorts of art, and I love that she is diversified within art. She has created a world and a mix of work that is very diverse, right? Photography, videography, blah, 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 all of it. But it's all in the art world, which to me is like a true artist, It's like she could do no other thing. All she wants to do is create. And sometimes she finds it draining if she hasn't had a chance to create for herself in a while, similar to me, where you get too wrapped up in doing commissions and other stuff and all of a sudden like you've lost your own creative outlet. Which is why it's good to have multiple creative outlets, by the way. Dance, journaling, writing, painting, so that if one of them falls off, you still have other things that you can lean on. Or if painting becomes work, then you still have dance that you can do for fun. You got to save some stuff for fun,
Yes.
or you got to make time to do stuff for fun as an artist. I think that's super important. It can't all just become work ever, and it should be fun. And however you can incorporate that into your week or into your day of remembering that the reason you even started doing it is because you love it, not because of the money. Now you make money off of it, or maybe you make money off of your logos, designs, but you still fundamentally love art. And so you owe it to yourself to do it for that reason with no end, with no money, just because you wanted to, because it's a Sunday and it's a rainy day and you felt like picking up the brush.
Okay, now I'm going to my last question. Why is creativity worth expressing for you?
I don't know why. I think, do you want me to go deep or direct?
I want you to go where your heart feels.
I'm going to try to keep this like concise. You're asking me a question that feels synonymous with like, what is the meaning of life? Which is why there's like layers to this onion, in my opinion. It's not a direct question, right? Like, why is creativity worth expressing? What is creativity and what is expression? Like, let's define the terms and what I mean by creativity, what that means to me versus somebody else. Because I think that's also one of the challenges with art and the value of art and it all being subjective. The value of art is not subjective. There's just a million different kinds. So many things are in art. Everything is an art and a science. Like, come on. You know what that's why, so what is art? It's like asking what is art? It's like it's an umbrella, it's a suitcase word. And it houses, I mean, music is art, dance is art, food is art. Chefs are just the artist of the food world,
Mhm.
It's like everything could potentially be art. Sex could be art. Relationships are art. Love is art. Emotions are art. Life is art. Everything is art. Everything is art. So, what's the value of that? And what is art? Well, I can tell you the answer that I currently have that is makes sense to me is that art is about the way you see life. The way you see life is your reality. Art is the picture that you are painting in your head. and that you're painting in real life, that you are, art is the life that you're creating. Art is creation. And you have the ability, by holding the brush, to create something beautiful on a canvas, on a piece of paper, in the kitchen, or in your day to day with a stranger in a conversation. This conversation is art. How about that? I just got poetic for you. So, so that's so art. I think is an act of creation. The way that you express it defines what type of art it is. So, for example, I think the two most fundamental, like if we go way back, like let's talk Big Bang for 2 seconds.
Okay.
Big Bang, what happens? What are the first things that exist, right? There's like light first and then sound. Everything else is manifestations and expressions of those two things. And there's a difference between manifestation and expression. So music is a manifestation of sound. It is a way that you create sound through a wooden object and strings. It is, yeah, you are creating sound. Okay. Dance is an expression of music, meaning it's not a primary. Think about like a manifestation, like music is like a primary color. It's like a, whatever. Music is like the primary color. All of the other colors are just mixes of those.
Mhm.
So manifestations, expressions. So dance, I am simply expressing the rhythm and the music through my body. Or I'm expressing the way it makes me feel through a painting. Or I'm expressing the way that I feel with words, which are sound.
Yeah.
But so I could just go blah, 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 blah. I just made sound. But if I tell you, if I craft together a sentence, now I'm expressing how I feel. That's art. So why? I don't know. I can tell you, I feel like the way that I view life is like an artist. And I don't know why I even feel the need to express stuff. I don't even why I have an urge or an itch to create. Why does anybody? Why do I even wake up? I mean, it's so weird to think about that we pretty much just have to invent a reason or like find a philosophy or believe in God because we don't know how to cope with this meaningless existence called life. And I don't know what the meaning of life is. I don't know why I create stuff. I don't know why I was put here. I don't know why my hair is this color. Well, actually, I do. It's because I dyed it. I don't know why, why sometimes gets us nowhere.
Mhm.
And it's easy to spiral going down that pathway of like, why? Why me? Why did this happen? Why do I create? If I don't have a good enough answer to that question, it's going to hold me back from making anything. Some people say start with the why. I'm like, kind of fuck the why. Not totally, not completely, okay? There's a why. We just don't fully understand it. And it's going to change. Why I painted when I was a kid is very different than why I paint now. So there's a why. You can have a why as a snapshot in time and then it might change. There's deeper whys like family, virtue, character. Those are some deeper whys to why I would not steal from a friend. So I don't know why it's worth creating or expressing. I don't know that I need to justify art. I really don't. I don't know that I even can. When people are like, what's the value of art? I'm like, it makes me happy. It makes other people happy. I don't know. I stopped questioning it. People are willing to pay for it. I'm going to sell it. That's the market. It's just economics, baby. I don't know what to tell you. Don't ask me why. I sold it for that price because someone was willing to pay it. You know, that's how, like, there's a million different ways that you could argue it or see it. I don't think any of them are right or wrong. I don't even think it really matters. I think what matters is that I just feel naturally inclined to do it. I think it's a very human thing. Humans have been painting on caves since we were primal, since before we were Homo sapiens. You
Yeah.
know, like it's why I don't know because big brains, because stories are how we understand the world and we need to tell ours because we have the ability to, because we have consciousness, because we want to be able to look back on our history and learn from our mistakes, because we want to be better, because we want to continue to create for many years to come, because that's what we do. Like the bees, why do the bees build these hives? Because that's what we're meant to do. It's just like, it's natural. It's in our nature to live, breathe, fuck, reproduce, eat, sleep, and work. And we need all of those things. And when we don't have that, and when we're not doing that in a way that feels aligned, you're going to feel not human. If you don't create the room to be human, which means moving, sleeping enough, eating a certain way, you're going to feel robotic. And I think that we've done ourselves a disservice. And because of all of the challenges of technology and the distractions that we've created all around ourselves, that create barriers for connection with other humans, which fundamentally I think is what we're struggling with right now,
Mm.
is a lack of connection in our lives. People feel no purpose, no meaning. They think nobody cares about them or even knows they exist because they only have virtual friends. They don't have anybody to come over who they can have dinner with. And for me, that was a temporary time because it takes time to make friends. And then I got back to it. And I got back to having community and I had to go out of my way to build it. But some people have never had it, don't go out of their way for it, don't know how to get it. I don't know exactly where it comes from or what it is. I'm sure it's a lot of reasons. They focused on career for 5 to 10 years and deprioritized it. So I think the thing to check in with yourself on, instead of asking why is creativity worth expressing, is what's important to you and how are you going to go about doing that in your day to day? Creating art happens to be really important to me because I love it. And that is something that I want to make time for in my day and in my week. I want it to be part of my day to day. Ideal day, creating something. Ideal day, wake up, make something beautiful. Ideal day, move my body, do some yoga, read a book, make art, live on a farm, have a garden. That's my ideal life. So this feels really aligned. Now, how am I going to get there? Right now, my art doesn't make me a full time living. It's one of the 3 to 5 balls I'm juggling in the air. So right now, I don't get to live my fairy airy dream of just, living on a farm and not having to check email and just painting for funsies. I got to pay rent. But I can have other jobs that allow me the flexibility. I can say, I only want to work part time, 3 to 4 days a week, and I want that to cover my expenses. I'm not going to be rich, but now I can pay my bills. I have a job that's flexible, that doesn't require me to be there from 9 to 5 because it's mostly remote.
Mm.
And that means that I can do other work from my art studio and spend 2 to 4 hours a day answering emails and making important phone calls or having a meeting. And then I can spend 4 to 6 hours painting. And you can do both. And I think we trap ourselves into thinking, if I have a full time job, I'll have no life. Just like people who say, if I have kids, I'll have no life. It'll be a change. You're going to have a lifestyle change, but you can make time for life. You're just going to have to figure out how. And so you can have an art studio. My art studio is less than $500 a month. Full transparency, because I think people need to hear numbers. Okay, because they think, oh, she has an art studio, she must be balling. Okay, no, this is on a budget. This is less than $1,000 a month. It's a very low fixed monthly expense that I think I can afford with selling 1 to 2 paintings, a few mugs a month, and I can continue to keep the lights on. It was a great next step for me. Now, That's doable. People think, oh my God, having my own art studio is completely out of reach. For, 425, 4, 425, and I have an art gallery and my own studio and I get to set it up how I want. Come on.
Yeah.
I was hesitant to share prices because I don't know if that's in my contract or not. But you know what? Whatever. Let the people know. Let the people know what the prices are. So there's different sizes of studios. I could have gone up. I could have gone down a little bit. I thought that was a decent size that will allow me to buy some ceramic stuff in bulk, be able to scale my business a little bit more. Instead of doing one painting a month, maybe I can do five. Maybe I can do 10, right? Because now I have a flexible job. I quit my full-time job, which destabilized me completely for about 6 months. I still am not stable because I'm ramping up a new business plus three new jobs at the same time, no stability, barely breaking even. But you know what? I'm the happiest I've ever been. And I feel like I'm on the right path because now I've at least got the big rocks in the right places. And I think I'm doing all the right things for myself. My day is perfect every day. Even though it's a bad day, it's a good day because I get to make art and I love the people that I work with. And I only work with women now, thank God. And I've crafted that. I created my life that I wanted. And it came with a lot of sacrifice and confusion and not knowing the right way. I applied to art school earlier this year, thinking I was going to go earlier last year. Before I left Philly, I wanted to leave the door open and I applied to that art school, Studio and Caminati, and I got accepted. And I would have loved nothing more than to go paint for 4 years straight. But it's really expensive, and I cannot justify getting into debt to get a certificate that I don't need
Mhm.
for something that I love that probably will not make me enough money to pay that off. So, like, now I'm just going to burden my hobby and I'm going to feel financially strained for the rest of my life because I decided to go to art school? No. I'd rather start small. I can already sell art. I've already proven to myself that I can sell art. I don't have a degree. And maybe I can do a 1 month workshop or a 2 week workshop and I can continue to do classes once a week, twice a week at a rate that I can afford to continue refining my skills. I can watch YouTube. I can
Yeah.
talk to other people, artists who are 25 years ahead of me. I just put myself in a community with 60 professional artists of different kinds. You think that wasn't on purpose? Build community. Talk to people who are 20 years ahead of you and see what they have to say about the craft and time and how long it takes and pricing and process. Because they figured it out
Mhm.
and they're doing it full time. So, like, forget what I have to say. Go talk to somebody 25 years older than me.
That it?
Yeah, I think that's, I
Oh,
don't want to continue. I mean, I could continue,
yeah.
but I think you get the gist of my spiel. I feel like, yeah, just take the next baby step and like don't hesitate too long. Think about it a little bit and, spend $20 first, then spend 200 and see if you can stay consistent. Do one commission and then see if you want to do two.
Mhm.
People start getting ahead of themselves and thinking, how am I going to be a full-time artist? How about just sell one painting?
Yeah.
You know? Don't solve the problem you don't have yet. That's my advice.
Well, thanks so much, Cindy, for being here on Creativity Worth Expressing podcast. Um, where can people find more of your work? Do you have any links that you would like to share?
So, right now, the best place to find me is Instagram. I don't have my website up yet. That's in the works. So, right now, at Cindervella, it's Cindrvella. Cindervella. That's my Instagram. I actually have a link there where you can text me. If you're interested in chatting more, I can send you some of my recent work. I am hoping to do more acrylics, oil paintings, and also my own pottery this year. So, custom art, hit me up. And that's the best place.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Cindy. And to the audience, those who've tuned in, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And please share this episode with others, especially those who are in love with art. I'm sure that they're going to fall in love with this episode with this discussion, and so that more people can also encounter the amazing art by this amazing artist, Cindy. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And again, Cindy, thank you for being a guest.
Oh, thank you so much. Can I say one last thing for those people that you mentioned the other earlier in the episode who might be doubting themselves? I just wanted to say if you are someone who's early in your journey, struggling in any way with self-doubt, unsure, and you need a sanity board or someone to bounce ideas off of, or you want to have a 15-minute phone call or a coffee, call me. Um, Very few people actually take me up on that. And I think most people are willing to give their time and share what's worked for themselves. And I'm willing to do the same. So yeah, really do reach out if it's something that you're struggling with, or you want to chat art. I'm always open to that. So thank you so much for having me, by the way. This was awesome.